Hello everyone, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking, and today we're going to do which I feel is a really interesting video, and it's going to be on ancient giants and archaeology, hidden knowledge and hidden history. We've done several other videos on giants. Some of it involves some of our own experiences. So if you want to see some other ones that we did, you can go to our website, Dimensional Walking. I'm sorry, that would be our channel, of course. And you can just put in there giants, and you should get at least two other ones that we've done. Now, on this one right here, I'm going to present to you 8 examples of some research and archaeological research that was done from very reputable researchers, peer-reviewed type folks in the past. Some of it goes back 100 years or so, but it's some really important information if you're interested in giants, because I do believe they've roamed the earth at one time, and who knows, maybe they're still around somewhere. If you count Sasquatch, then they're definitely around. So anyways, with that said, let's kind of jump into it, and I think some of this is pretty compelling. I really do. So let's look at the evidence, and we'll start with the one that probably most of you do know about, which is this giant called Ganthapithecus, okay? And this was discovered in 1935, and a guy named Ralph von Clunewald, and he was a Dutchman, and he discovered, and he was doing a little bit of a tour in Hong Kong, and he discovered in a drugstore this large, giant jawbone. And come to find out, they determined that it was a real jawbone. It wasn't some kind of a fake or anything else. And so he went ahead and did his research and found out it belonged to a species of ape, a giant ape, I guess you would say. And the whole name was Giant of Palanki, Blackie, I guess they called it, after the discoverer. So anyways, I guess maybe that's his first name, Blackie, I don't know. But since then, scientists have discovered many other, bones, fragments from this Gigantopithecus giant. And of course, the interesting thing about this, that giant lived during the time where humans were on Earth, and there was a period somewhere around 1 million years ago, maybe 900,000 to 1 million years ago. So that's when early man was roaming the Earth. So it was also at the same time where this creature also roamed the Earth. And he was probably one of the first examples of giants, okay? Now, granted, he was not really a giant that could be called a human, but he was a giant that was probably very close to being human. Okay? The next one I want to talk about is Nazca Lines. Now, Nazca Lines are a series, as you probably know, of giant glyphs, geoglyphs, I think they call them. And, of course, that's in the Nazca Desert in Peru. And these geoglyphs were created by Nazca people between 500 and 1000 AD is what's estimated. And they depict a variety of animals, plants, geometric figures. Some of the geographs are so large that they can only be seen from basically above the ground, and several hundred feet above the ground at that. In fact, if you get a view of a couple thousand feet above the ground, you can really see. It's really quite incredible. Now, I personally have not gone there, but I do have friends that have gone there and flown over the Nazca Lines, and they just said it's absolutely incredible. So anyways, if you ever get a chance, it's worth going to see. So one of the most famous Nazca Lines is this one called Arthro, a metamorphic figure. It is over 650 feet tall, or long, I guess we'll say, and it is depicted, it has a large head, long arms, and short legs. So basically we're saying it's kind of a giant in many ways, and it's depicting a very large entity. In this case, we're talking about giants, so we're going to call it a giant. Some of the researchers believe that the Nazca Lines have a lot to do with religious and ceremonial purposes, and that may have been a way in which the Nazca people communicated with the gods, okay, from above. I guess we'll say it that way. Number 3 is the giant skeletons of Wisconsin, in my home state. So in 1879, a group of farmers in Wisconsin unearthed a giant skeleton. While digging, well, they found it. They weren't looking for it. They were digging for a well. So the skeleton was over 10 feet tall and had a skull that was twice the size of a human head. So that was huge. Anyways, the farmers, the story got to the newspapers and it quickly spread nationwide. So a team of scientists from the Smithsonian probably got on a train, I guess, at that time and trucked their way out to Wisconsin. And they started a very formal investigation. So the scientists, they investigated and concluded that the skeleton was real, was genuine. However, they were unable to identify what the skeleton was from, what type of species it was from. So the scientists ended up burying, which is really wild, burying the skeleton. That's what they were said, and then refused to release any further information about it. And unfortunately, the skeleton has never been found after that. Or who knows what they did with it, because obviously at that time that would have flipped science upside down, to find a giant was roaming the earth at one time, and where previously they hadn't talked about the giants or had minimum conversation about it. Number 4 is the Goliaths of the Andes. So in the early 20th century, a team of archaeologists discovered a giant burial grounds in the Andes of South America. The burial ground had skeletons of huge skeletons, 10-foot skeletons of humanoid type skeletons. They also found in the burial ground, they found tools, weapons, and these tools and weapons were gigantic, meaning they wouldn't fit a normal human. They could only fit a skeleton of a giant being. They could only be handled by a giant being, I guess is the best way to put it. So anyways, that was really fascinating. So they named them Goliaths, or giants, and they basically lived in the Andes Mountains thousands of years ago. Number 5, this is the Giant of Palanki. Is a giant. It's basically a giant sarcophagus that was discovered in ruins of an ancient Maya city of Palanki in Mexico. So the sarcophagus itself is 12 foot long and covered in carvings of a giant figure. So typically sarcophaguses, as you know from the Egyptian times, they would be fairly close to the size of the actual being or the body that is inside. Sometimes they're maybe a foot or two larger, but typically they fall pretty close to it. So speculation here was that these, at the very least, the giant or whoever was inside was probably about 10 foot tall, even though the sarcophagus itself was 12 foot tall, 12 foot long. So anyways, again, the giant figure is depicted with a large head, long arms, and short legs, and was also depicted wearing a helmet and a breastplate. Okay? So some of the scientists concluded that this was the tomb of the giant king, the giant Mayan king, and they believed that Giant was the giant was a representation of a Mayan god. So it could go either way here in this one. It could be a god that was being worshipped, or it could actually be a king or a body of a king that was inside of this sarcophagus. Number 6, this is the giant footprints of Ilovi. So this was on a beach, and in 1968, a group of fishermen discovered a series of giant footprints, and I think they measured about 15, 16 inches long and probably 8 or 9 inches wide. So the officials reported this to the local police, and then the police got some scientists involved, and they examined the footprints, and their conclusion was that they were genuine. Okay, the scientists were unable to, identify the footprints, but they speculate they were made by a giant ape or a humanoid. Number 7 is the giant skeletons of Malta. In the late 19th century, a team of archaeologists discovered a giant burial ground on the island of Malta, and they discovered skeletons of people that were over 7 feet tall. And they also discovered other types of artifacts, which were large artifacts that would fit the giants that supposedly were in the skeletons or in the burial grounds. So so they named it, obviously, Giants of Malta. They believe that the giants of Malta were a race of giants that lived in Malta several thousand years ago. Next, and the last one I'm going to talk about is number 8, the giant sarcophagus of Baalbek. So the giant sarcophagus of Baalbek was discovered in the ruins of the ancient a Phoenician city of Baalbek. I think it's Baalbek. And it is in Lebanon. And there was a sarcophagus. This sarcophagus is huge. Okay, this is 60 foot long and weighs 1,000 tons. Okay, so this is huge. So this giant sarcophagus is probably still there, actually, because it would have been impossible to move. So some researchers believe that the sarcophagus may have been used to bury giant Phoenician king. Another giant Phoenician king, actually. The others believe that the giant sarcophagus of Baalbek may be a representation of the Phoenician god. So that is kind of some of the ones that are known and have been confirmed by archaeologists from a standpoint that these are real existing giants, or high probability that these giants, these entities or these skeletons are equal to giants. Okay? So let's face it, there has been this amazing amount, and Rainbow and I have also done our own videos on it from our experiences. We had some pretty amazing experiences in Utah, where Rainbow was able to visualize and see while we're over the burial ground of some giants that we believe are in Utah. So that's also on our web list or playlist. So anyways, I think that giants are real, and I think they possibly played a very significant role in human history. And of course, as I always say, time will tell to see if there's some more of these giants around the world that we start finding. So anyways, with all that said, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.